Okay, we are live. December the 30th, 2024. That is Murder Hornets, World War III. And good news on that front. World War III isn't about to happen. You're living it. This is the perpetual war. It's actually World War Infinite. It never really ends. And the phrase World War III, it's been thrown around for so long that it has lost all impact. They have blunted the impact. They have been crying wolf for so long that nobody cares. Okay, let's see. We are number 33. If you go to News Radio Online, Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis. Here's a little breakdown. In their annual ranking, TalkStream Live named Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis as the top streaming talk show of the year. And this is for their TSL Power 50 report, where they sample millions of listener sessions, listen to 50 of the most influential and most listened to live shows. And so this is one of the areas where we tend to show up because we stream on all these different audio platforms, not just video. So we're on RadioNet, Paranormal Radio, we're on TuneIn, Radio King, and many others. For a full list, go to ips.monster. Let's see here. Top 50, it says here. I guess it has shows on here listed like Coast to Coast, War Room with Steve Bannon, Mark Levin, Don Bongino. We're number 33. Infinite Plane Society is number 33, right next to the American Journal, The Other Side of News, and Stephanie Miller. Just got that news. So anyway, I put a link there if you want to read the article and see who else is placed. We're joined by Gematria 101, Zinvalis, Matt X, Ears Up, Tracy Banton, King Ravana, Pippi Langstruff, Pondering Masses. Thank you for joining. So we only have about an hour, so if you want to call in, I will open up phones. But I want to talk about, let's get into a couple of things. Now, this has been floating around. I don't know how valid this is. But there are some people on the left who have veered into conspiracy theory ever since Trump's ear was almost pierced by a AR-15. And here's a rumor I saw that was spreading before the election, but it's come back. This was posted by JB Thinkin. There is an internal classified government report that exists that exposes Trump's staged assassination attempt. It is being withheld for national security purposes, but the truth will eventually come out. And when it does, Trump's entire legacy and brand will be completely destroyed. What do you think about that? I kind of think it's wishful thinking, because the people who promote this seem to think that Trump hoaxed the media and hoaxed his followers. But if you really look at the situation, it would necessarily have involved the Secret Service, both sides of the media, the AP photographer who got the image of the bullet whizzing by Trump's ear and did the Braveheart shot. They would have all been complicit, and the Secret Service specifically. So if it was a hoax, and it was, then it would logically follow that it was a staged event, a closed movie set, a magic trick, and the people in the audience may not have been in on it, but anybody behind him, definitely. And you can go ahead and assume 0 deaths. No need to think that the fireman really died. That was 100% what I call a bloody guardrail, misdirection, a hoax, so that you can't say, oh, well, Trump staged it, without looking like you're insensitive, because you're saying that while this person's family is mourning and Trump is going to the family funeral for this dead fireman. And I think it's a little much for people to accept the fact that a fireman on TV and the family could all be in on such a hoax like this. But I'm in agreement here that it won't come out because of national security purposes. But that goes for all the PSYOPs. All of them. They all follow this same pattern. Pondering Master says they won't give that kind of narration away. It would fracture the delusion over the masses. They can't relinquish that control. Right. No, they could not, because the left wing doesn't call out the right wing hoaxes, and the right wing doesn't call out left wing hoaxes. They did it one time for show purposes. Alex Jones versus the Sandy Hook thing, that was performative auto hoaxing. He wasn't really trying to uncover anything. They touched on it, they created a limited hangout, and they created the perception that this was an anomaly. But as we have been talking about for years, you can't look at any one of these fake events as separate from all of the other ones. They all exist within a fictional universe. And I think it's safe to describe the mainstream media worldview as a fictional universe. Subtle Infinity says, been listening to the last few calls. Nice work. Curious as to your angle on the AI video I just did. Oh, yeah, send me a link. I'm working with Sora AI to turn a storyboard, or rather a script into a storyboard, an animated storyboard. I'm about 20 slides into it. It's going to take me a few more days, but I think that if it's coherent enough and it tells the story the way an animated storyboard should, I might be able to elicit the help of animators who might want to help me produce it as a feature. King TL says, I'm on the way in. Pissed. Let's talk. TO, one moment. Yeah, what are you mad about? Are you mad about Witsit Vapes? Are you mad that they staged a trip to Antarctica? Does anybody here believe it really happened? I want to believe that we wouldn't be lied to by McToon. It's hard for me to believe that McToon could be a flat earther working to suppress it. You know, to me, that's a shape trader. That's pretty bad. But I suspend judgment because I have full confidence that time will tell. Okay, so here's the article, the video, AI Possession Theory, Channelers, Tech, Cosmology, and Entertainment. Okay, I'll go ahead and listen to it, and we'll talk about it after I've listened to it. A couple of things about it, though. I've been very interested in this concept. I don't believe that AI exists. What we play, like I got Claude AI, ChatGPT. It's a far cry from the Hollywood version. This is not Skynet. However, I do think it's an interesting question, philosophical question, maybe more, to talk about the notion of non-corporeal sentience residing within computer hardware. That is kind of interesting. There's that trilogy, the Sprawl trilogy by William Gibson, Neuromancer, Count Zero, and Mona Lisa Overdrive. I believe Neuromancer was largely inspiration for the first Matrix, but in the second one, Count Zero, the Neo-like character is interfacing with both cyberspace and entities, ghosts, the voodoo Loa, the spirits that are summoned into possession. And they make this point throughout this book. The point is made that the entities that are summoned in magic ceremonies to possess the celebrant can also access your mind, your body, through your Neuralink, basically. Think about Agent Smith possessing people. Same concept, but Count Zero kind of mixes these two ideas very effectively, very interesting. Esteban says, New Jaron was a shill when he consigned... Did he say 1/6 was real? I mean, look, that's the thing, too. I don't even care about the opinions of people who don't auto-hoax. Their opinions on the media don't matter. It's just noise. No signal. It's all noise. And if he believes that January 6th is real, then it kind of renders everything else he says null and void, in my opinion. I would say the same for McToon. I don't care about McToon's opinion on the shape of the world or its rotundity because he thinks all of the fake news is real. Same with Fight the Flat Earth. And these guys are also, and I'm not knocking it, but they're also religious. They're God believers, and that's fine, but their opinions aren't exactly objective, and so I don't really care that much. I mean, what we're doing here with regard to media analysis is just strictly Aristotelian logic, no leaps of faith. We're just examining the facts and drawing accurate conclusions. Our understanding and model of the media does provide us with predictability. I mean, I'm able to tell you in advance what I'm going to watch, what my expectations are, and it happens every time. So either we're incredibly psychic, prescient, and precognitive, and so is Netflix, or we've somewhat cracked the matrix. Esteban says he doesn't believe it. He's just an agent taking orders, so he has to say it's real. Right. Well, let me go ahead and address this. So we've been talking about this off and on, and I guess my takeaway point has been, don't even feel like you have to decide you believe it's real or not until you've seen everything. Like, I get it, we're not going to see penguins, but what I want to see is I want to see the storm. They supposedly had to leave early or they would have been stuck over Christmas. Supposedly there was a storm that was whipping at the tent and they barely survived. You know, I heard a little bit about this storm, but I haven't seen it. Like, where's the video of you in Antarctica? And then Witsit vaping on camera? Come on. Witsit vapes it. And then the drone thing. The drone beeping when it gets close to the mountain. And then I think both Jaron and someone else there had said that the mountains and the glacier look so close you could touch them. Like, I'm sorry, but I live about 5 miles from a mountain. And at no point have I ever felt like I could just reach out and touch them. They've always looked like they were way the hell out there. Like it's a long walk. But for some reason, they both felt like those mountains were really close. And they had to say, hey, ha, 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 it's 10 miles away, but it feels like I could touch it. It's like, okay, so you're in some kind of the Vegas sphere? Did you guys rent the Vegas sphere for this? And they're going to be faking moon bases. They're going to be faking Mars bases. What kind of technology do you think they're going to use? They're going to use actors and LED screens. Green screens aren't really a thing. That was a misdirection. And if you are in one of these big rooms with these screens, they could turn any section of it into a green screen if they need that. But there are no needs for separate green screens. So when he flew the drone to show you, oh, look, there's not a screen here, that was misdirection. Joe Saunders says he couldn't hold the snow up to the camera. He dropped it twice. Yeah, I think this was too minimalistic. There were too many things that I just felt like we should have seen, but we didn't. It didn't look like a real Antarctica expedition. It looked like an episode on a bad TV show, like some sitcom. Like it was a movie set. There was rear screen projection. Stanley Kubrick would be embarrassed. And then the anger, the rage. Jaron's like, you're dead to me. McToon just raging at Nathan Oakley. The rage is all to intimidate you. That's not what rational people do when they've made a point. I felt like the snow crunching sounds were fake, like they downloaded sound effects. Did anybody else get that? I mean, that's just my opinion. Esteban says, and no snow being moved. My foot moved. Oh, yes, that's right. There were some anomalies with the snow. The snow was groomed by some kind of a machine, and I'm pretty sure if you were to scrape the snow, there would be black and white Masonic tiles. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, it's Leo Pirate.
Hey, what's up, Leo Pirate? Where are you, really quick, before anything else, where are you on the final experiment?
So I haven't been following it very closely, but based on what people have been saying in the community, the people that have been sent are just incredibly biased. And when it comes to auto hoaxing, a lot of people in the think tank are specialists in analyzing special effects and what is it, background fakery and stage props. For me, I usually go from a narrative perspective, like circumstantial evidence in a court case. And yeah, that alone, the motivation for why, the timing of the event, the people sent, you mentioned earlier how emotional he got at anyone questioning it. Those kinds of things for me are enough. But on top of all the other stuff like the vaping and the fakeability of LED backgrounds, it's just Right. It's just too much. Whereas if they actually did go, wouldn't you just do a simple, like, here, check it out. Look at these penguins, man. Like, well, look at my breath at all times, always giving off this.
Yeah, exactly. Look, there shouldn't be any question. The fact that there are questions is questionable. And the fact they can't answer those questions and silence all opposition with some footage or some photos just says it all to me. And so we can go ahead and just say this is not scientific evidence. It was not a scientific expedition. They were biased, and McToon made a bunch of money because he bet on the results on some website with crypto. So I'm just dismissing it. Sorry, you guys wasted your money.
And in magician, isn't it in magic? I hate to use a Christopher Nolan film as an example, but isn't the three stages? It was like the pledge, I forgot the middle part, and then the prestige. The pledge is where they're like, look at this, look, examine the space. They like need to show you, and it's like, look, my breath says this. Look, guys, look at this snow. It's almost like a magician trying to show you, like, you see, this is a totally ordinary set. It's a totally ordinary place. I'm not faking anything.
Oh, yes. I mean, when they said that there was not a green screen and they debunked it, and then deep inside the rabbit's hole came out, and he said, hey, guys, don't call it a green screen. And I'm like, that's weird because you would expect Dearth to jump on it being a green screen because he's trying to protect his app. So when I heard him say it's not a green screen, my first thought was this is some kind of misdirection. They're in a Mandalorian movie set and they're trying to conceal this with some misdirection. So there's a lot of misdirection and trickery, and I think it's all a magic show.
And the mainstream coverage it got as well, because I'm of the opinion if this was a real scientific inquiry, I don't think it would get any real exposure. Instead, they go there, it gets mainstream coverage. People are like, wow, how can flat earthers be so dumb? Look, it's like they went to Antarctica concurrently with the drone panic. So, and we've talked about that before. How I think they're kind of setting it up to like, and they well, even the name, the final experiment. What is that? Like, it's just done. Set it, nail and coffin. It's finished. Let's stop talking about this now.
Right, right. Well, it didn't work. In fact, I think it's funny. It had the reverse effect because I thought the flat Earth thing was just kind of going to sleep. I was like, well, no one's going anywhere. It's not doing anything. And so instead of being a nail in the coffin, this has caused everyone who is ever interested in the topic to suddenly look at it again. And I don't think they're so much grasping at straws as they're really just, I think, being hypercritical and skeptical. And my take on it, and I've been accused of being a fence squatter, that's not the case. I don't consider the flat Earth to be a model. As far as the flat Earth model, it's not complete. We have no information to validate it. I don't think the globe model is valid because I don't know what is in space. Because outer space has been falsified, as because we're talking about special effects and trickery, we don't know what that is. So we can't definitively say that the model is complete without knowing what that is, because that would tell us a lot about how things work. So we just don't have enough information. And the people who have a model, flat or round, have come to a conclusion prematurely. And that's kind of where I'm resting with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we had talked before even the experiment happened. If anything, I'm glad to see that it's reinvigorating skepticism within people who already were skeptical of our current cosmology. But I hope that it kills off the Bible flat earthers. They are the worst. They go in with presuppositions that are not even supported by the text they claim to be respecting. They're the worst. I hope that goes away, but I don't think it will. Just because they'll always get into it, and a lot of the names that are coming back out of the woodwork, people like Eric Dubay and others, they're also agents in place, because Eric Dubay is incredibly like anti-Semitic. I think that, and to make this clear for anyone listening, it's not like I have a dog in the fight. Right? I'm not pro-Israel or anti-Israel, but when you have someone who basically is saying that Adolf Hitler's a good guy, and hey, didn't the Nazis take out Freemasonry, and Freemasonry pushes the globe Earth, that is set up for a greater narrative in the future, where it's like, hey, if you actually question our current cosmology, you basically are anti-Semitic. And even in Oppenheimer, I think I sent you that clip in the Gilded chat. Oppenheimer, the Christopher Nolan film, there's a scene where he ties anti-Semitism to disbelief of quantum physics and the nuke. There's a line
Okay.
where he says to, have you
Yeah.
seen that clip? I sent
Now,
you, yeah.
I think,
To,
yes, I remember that now. And it's such an obvious smear tactic. And so I think that the question of theology and religion should be separate from our media analysis and separate from the question of our worldview, shape included. I think these are separate conversations. And I saw the introduction of religiosity into it as as a step in the wrong direction because it became defined as anti-science, which no one can really stand by. We're not anti-science. We just recognize that there's a point where science ends and special effects begin. And we do live in a science fiction enhanced paradigm. So we make these distinctions. But yeah, that has always been a smear. I've always made it a point to avoid that kind of stuff. That's why I take the position of off-world stage. Like, I don't have a political dog in the fight here.
I think it benefits the perception managers, the news benders to do that, because then it sets it up for narratives for them to create this ghoulish image of anyone who even questions or considers things that everyone just takes for granted as true. And yeah, that's not a mistake. Definitely not a mistake.
Nope.
I immediately I can
And
to Matt Damon.
well, do you remember in 2020 they changed the term from conspiracy theorist, which makes you sound smart, like you have a theory, to conspiracist. So the term conspiracist became the usual term. And every time I saw these big headlines in capital letters, I just saw racist, like conspiracist. And this is when they started attaching conspiracy theories to MAGA and to QAnon and blood libel. And I could see them there. It's all to mold public perception, to attack the people who don't trust mainstream. And, I don't fall for it. And the people who do fall for it are subpar conspiracy theorists because they still think the events in the news are real and they just found a scapegoat. So it's like, no, your scapegoat is a misdirection. It's a red herring. And you don't even know the news is fake. So you're pretty screwed up at that point anyway. So we don't, I don't have anything in common with the media mischaracterization of conspiracy theorists, these, whatever they are, conspiracists.
The word racist is even in conspiracist, right? It's like a substring within that statement. And I think the greatest success of QAnon was the politicization. Wow, I can't speak today. Of media, analyzing media fakery. It used to not be political to question the narratives put out by our government news agencies, by mind wars, psychological operations, our psyop entertainment complex. That's not political, right? Why? And that's what QAnon did. Is it politicized it and then created this whole like JFK mythology, getting back at the CIA, that's a narrative that also has its own eschatology and termination coming soon.
It was a good sales pitch, though, because you have essentially Trump indirectly through Q promising to get rid of the bad guys behind all the conspiracies. So you're like, oh, you vote for this guy, they're going to get rid of chemtrails, and they're going to save the children, and they're going to expose the bankers that control the world, and we're all going to get free money. So they sold the conspiracy theorists on this victory, and it never happened. The plan, trust the plan, all their slogans turned out to be nothing, and they even lost in 2020. So I'm looking at it now, and it's like it's still the same crowd, but they're a bit watered down. They're no longer trying to save the children. They've kind of toned down their messaging, and now it's all just culture war stuff.
And I would say the biggest benefit I got from, kind of looking at your past episodes and the connections you made in the past is these greater narratives tied to politics about, I guess now we're nearing the end of 2024, the Maxwell Ezrello incident. That's fascinating. On 4/19, he burned himself on the same date that David Koresh also burned to death, 33-year-old, in Waco, Texas. And then Donald Trump announced his run for presidency in Waco, Texas, concurrently running with Netflix's Waco American Apocalypse, both released at the same time.
And when Waco American Apocalypse came out, on the trailer they said 1.6 million rounds. That's why the ATF went in. So 1.6 was kind of thrown into it. And Waco is where Alex Jones and Timothy McVeigh got their starts. So Timothy McVeigh, big name in this whole
Yep.
thing, and then Alex Jones. And then Alex Jones famously went on Piers Morgan, and he said the DHS has 1.6 billion hollow point rounds. And if they try to take our guns, 1776 will commence again. So the 1776, the 1.6, this has been a reoccurring theme. It's code, which is why I say that January 6th was planned decades in advance. And Trump kicking off his campaign in Waco and Netflix having that documentary. Yeah, this is all evidence of our fabricated history. And it's just being broadcast both on the news and in the entertainment.
And Timothy McVeigh, again, doing it on 419 as homage to Waco, which he was allegedly or ostensibly radicalized by. Uh, there was another narrative that he was radicalized by the Turner Diaries by William Luther Pierce, a man born on September 11th, 1933. And in that book, the right-wing radicals nuke Washington, D.C. So it's like, that's these narratives are so intertwined,
Yes.
so closely related, and it just primes the audience, the world stage audience, opens their frame of reference, provides plausibility for future news bent fake stories.
Well, lately my focus has been making this point because I think it's lost on a lot of people that we can all agree, just by those of us who observe, that there are fake news events. There are simulated events that go into the history books as real. But fake news is not just political. It's not like left wing fakes a story to win over people, and it's not just lying and mendacity. Fake news is history in the making, and that's one of the conclusions I've been reaching. And I think this is one of the main points of my live world, which I'm about to release. That we talk about history being, a lot of people say ancient history is unverifiable. A lot of it's fakeable. Well, what do you define as recent history? To me, recent history is all of the news, the incontestable narratives that get set in stone, no matter what the conspiracy theorists notice. So I think it's safe to say that the purpose of fake news is engineering this prefabricated history, and we're just living it. We're watching it playing out before our eyes.
And people get scared when they hear the term like fake history. Uh, it really is about the framing. Like these people or characters that we know in our history may have been real people, but the way it's recorded and the fantastical elements added to the order of events or particular battles, that is the fake part, right? And the lionization of political figures. I mean, in the U.S. Capitol, there's a fresco at the top of that, very looks like St. Peter's Basilica at the Capitol building, right? The fresco where it's called the apotheosis of George Washington, where he's in heaven with Columbia and all these other ancient empire gods and goddesses. Like is that normal?
Yes, well,
Is that
I think it is. We have been witnessing the apotheosis of Donald Trump as he has ascended from businessman to president to George Washington. They've compared him to MLK, weirdly, Jesus. He's been compared to King David and Moses. So we have seen the apotheosis of Donald Trump, and it's state-olatry. I really think it is. I think they are literally getting the public to worship him like he's a god, and I think people kind of do. We've seen people praying to Trump. This is not hyperbole, but I think it's like what you would call, like the they say cult of personality, but I think you could call this an imperial cult, and I think it's I think it's designed this way. They template this character who's acting out this role on the world stage with these other narratives. So now you associate him with Julius Caesar. Now you associate him with Jesus. It's all by design.
Yeah, and syncretism has existed, through all the world empires. Like every empire has had their own astrotheology, their own reincorporation of gods, which deify every aspect of the human experience, nature, the seasons, and it adds legitimacy to the imperial governance. Like this isn't just a government; it's divinely appointed, and the Medes and the Persians, Greece, Rome, even with their Romulus and Remus twin story, right? They were cast into a basket, into a river, right, and saved miraculously by a she-wolf. Very Moses-y, right? And it's there's these things are kind of how you can see each world empire through history have had their own self-contained mythology and fake history. But again, people hear the word fake history, and their mind goes way off the rails. You know what I
Well,
mean?
look, we can, but if we talk about fake news, like let's say they only fake 1 in 100 stories and the rest of it's legit, it doesn't matter because the stories they fake, like the Luigi one, those steer the entire media narrative and spotlight for the next month. So every fake story actually gives them a tremendous amount of power to steer our focus, and the selectivity of what they focus on also defines their worldview, where it's a lot of lies by omission. Got a couple of comments here. Jay Diggs says Turner Diaries is a main part of the plot in the new Jude Law movie called The Order. Okay, I didn't know that. I'll have to check it out. And Estevan says the snow was making crunchy sounds, so the snow had to have been making footprints, but there were no footprints. Terrible job, low-level thinkers. That's a good point. That's a very good point. They didn't have any footprints, but you heard a lot of crunching noises. It was kind of comical.
It's interesting. I didn't even know about that movie, but last month I had actually looked because Francis Ford Coppola is good friends with Spike Lee. He appeared on the same panel when he was introducing Megalopolis. So, following your advice, and for everyone who's watching, you can do this. Metascripters, they're real people. They're real people. They have real connections, and when they make movies, the entertainment is the side effect. They have a political and governmental purpose for these films we made. So I looked into Spike Lee's work, and in 2018, he had released a film called Black Klansman that was nominated for several Academy Awards. It did pretty well in box office, all that stuff. The film, main characters infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan, who has a secret division within it called the Organization. That's the same name of the group from the Turner Diaries. And in an early scene with same actor, Adam Driver. Adam Driver is the FBI agent infiltrating the organization. He's talking to one of the guys, and he says, "This year we're going to do something amazing." And he gestures a mushroom cloud, and says, "Boom, that's what's going to happen this year." And he's, shut up, And this movie's from 2018.
Well, I'm looking at this movie called The Order, and this is about the Turner Diaries and white nationalists getting them the nuke. Now, this is interesting because you mentioned the author of the Turner Diaries, his birthday, 9/11, 1933. Well, Timothy McVeigh, who was motivated by this movie to blow up the building in Oklahoma on 4/19, he was executed at the age of 33 on 6/11. So it's like an inverted 9/11. But the 6/11 and 116 are often associated with the nuke, specifically the white nationalists. Like if you remember the movie Oppenheimer, he wore the K6 badge, 11/6. The movie was 11 miles long, IMAX film, weighed 600 pounds. The Batman movie, they blow up the dam, it goes underwater, 11/6. So we see a lot of 11/6, like an inverted 9/11. And my explanation is 9/11 is the external threat, and you invert it, and it relates to all of the domestic terror psyops. And that's why there's consistency. So McVeigh dies 6/11, 6/11 at the age of 33. Well, Donald Trump was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania at 6/11 and 33 seconds. And again, 6/11 is a huge part of the right-wing use of the Bible phrase, as you often talk about Ephesians 6:11. And then in the movie Sound of Freedom, there was a Bible verse, Timothy 6:11, that they were all about. And I'm like, is that Timothy McVeigh? But anyway, I'm looking at this movie here called The Order. And it just so happens that the leader of the Aryan nations, his name is Butler, like Butler, Pennsylvania. Just kind of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'll have to watch this. It's a new movie.
That's an incredible.
And guess how?
And
it runs for 116 minutes. So there's like this another 116 kind of encoded into it.
I mean, that's incredible. That 9 when it's 9. So 9/11 is alien threats, and then 6/11 is internal domestic terrorist events. That's amazing.
It's consistent. It's highly consistent. So you got Timothy McVeigh, 33, executed 6/11/01. Then 90 days later, the lead hijacker on 9/11, Mohammed Atta, like Mohammed attacks, he was 33. So you had the representative of Osama bin Laden, the leader of the alien threat, dying at 9/11 at 33. You have the leader of the domestic threats dying on 6/11 at 33. So again, the 6/11 and 116 is consistently tied with domestic threats and specifically the nuke.
And the thing is, people are unable to comprehend the scale of this because Sound of Freedom, that's Angel Studios, that's a small thing. These other films, they're totally different studios all around. It's like, well, yeah, but the messaging is the same. And that kind of synchronization, how it's implemented, whether it be across some kind of fraternal groups or whatever, I don't care. Like the implementation details, that's something we can investigate further. But this, from a black box perspective, looking outside looking in, it's undeniable, right? Like this consistent messaging, even with the numbers, leads me to think that you've talked about it before, how it could be messaging across metascriptors, like them alerting each other. It could also be that these fictional movies are stored in our mind in a different area, right? And when you're absorbing a fictional piece of media, these numbers are also stored in a very subconscious part of your mind. So at the timing when the event occurs, no one is consciously looking at the calendar going, here we are, we're getting really close to this event. It's just there. So when the event is put on the world stage audience screens, it just clicks and it just makes sense. Like, this is real. This is happening. And they can't
Yes,
even explain with words why.
I think that is the case. I happen to think that the programming works on several levels, and so we're not always consciously aware of everything that we're taking in. And that's why movies are so important, because we're passively receiving all this data, all this information, and it is recalled. It's not irrelevant. It's not forgotten. It's actually triggered by the more recent events. And I tested this for myself. After the Trump event, there were people within half an hour going right to YouTube and searching for the video clip from the movie Machete, where the Robert De Niro character, who's acting very Trump-like, is complaining about immigrants when he's shot at, and then the assassin gets his ear shot off. A lot of people said, wow, this is Trump's point of view 30 minutes ago. So I noticed this and I said, I think this underscores what we always say about the purpose of foreshadowing and predictive media, because what you're seeing here is people referencing a movie from 14 years ago. Like, that's random, but that just shows how good these associations are. That's their first association, which I think is part of the process. Like, I happen to think that the Joker movie was used to condition people to react to Luigi Mangione in a certain way.
Absolutely, yeah. Because he's even paraded around. He's like, and Joker too takes the majority of the films in a courtroom, and now we have a courtroom drama for Luigi Mangione, and people who mock, it's like, oh, Luigi, what is he like, Luigi and Mario Brothers? I'm like, yeah, that's intentional. You can mock that, but I hope you know, in the Super Mario Brothers movie, one of the most successful animated films of all time from 2023, the majority of the film, Luigi's in jail. Like, he's
Really?
captured by Bowser, he's in jail. Yeah, in the majority of the film, and that's not an accident. So if you notice that and think, that's funny, it's not funny. It's actually intentional. It's by design. The Metascriptors play off of what is in pop culture, so that these recalls are made and strengthens the affinity you have, the sympathy you have for this anti-hero Luigi character.
I'm going to have to watch that one now, because there's connections between Luigi and Luigi. There's connections between Joker and Luigi. And then we were noting how, and a lot of people noticed this, that in the cop car he's laughing, and you got Deadpool, the air freshener Deadpool. So Deadpool is an anti-hero, but the other association is his name is Wade Wilson. Wade Wilson happens to be the name of a serial killer known for having tons of groupies. So you got another guy with groupies, you have this name association to Deadpool, and then the guy Wade Wilson has a Joker smile tattooed on his face. So these are, I think these are like aggregates of symbols and characters and ideas, and they just mash it up together, and it
Yeah,
seems to work. I mean, people are experiencing this like it's Joker, and they're rooting for this anti-hero.
and I think that for me is because I think I started this call saying I look for the circumstantial, the narrative elements in auto hoaxing. That for me is it's like the most powerful heuristic. It's like when you start seeing a national, multi-day national news event, a perception management event that has this blender-like effect of so many different folk heroes, archetypes, pop culture references that we are supposed to take as real. Like that for me is like, okay, this is fake. Like, this is a story, right? And it's funny because I've been taking, we've been talking now for like half an hour. I hope I'm not taking up your show. the reason why I called in, this is the funniest thing. I tried to call in originally. You were talking about AI, and how history, fake news, becomes fake history, and then history is just accepted. Another big heuristic to look at is when you look at the notoriety of an event. Of course, how long is it in the news cycle? How long people talk about it? But another big thing is a Wikipedia page. Wikimedia is actually, there's a knowledge graph that's had behind it. It's a little technical to explain, but the database behind Wikipedia is a knowledge graph where every single page is a node. And to get a page on Wikipedia is kind of a big deal because the citations are usually from the news outlets that the think tank analyzes. Like when we see like New York Post, Newsweek, CNN, whatever, those are the citations that are used in a Wikipedia article. So when a perception management event gets its own Wikipedia article with tons of citations, that is stored in the knowledge graph database called Wikidata. And that's also used to train OpenAI's LLMs. I mean, I hope you know Wikidata is openly available. Like anyone can grab a screenshot of that data set, and that's used, right? So then all of our future, Claude, OpenAI and stuff, they need examples, labeled, structured examples. And Wikimedia or Wikidata's knowledge graph behind it is an incredible resource that's used by all these large language models. So
Yeah,
something to think about in the future.
Yeah, Wikipedia it contains a fictional universe. Like, yeah, sure, like fictional universes overlap with the real world. It's a setting, and it's internally consistent, and then it has its interjections, it has its characters, its augmentations, and I would argue that our agreed upon shared reality, since it's bolstered by a fake enhanced history and fake news, does constitute a fictional universe because it's internally consistent. All these fake stories exist in this same bubble, and it excludes anything that might contradict any of them. And I always look at Wikipedia in that way. It doesn't invalidate a lot of the knowledge and information, but you have to keep in mind that it is a gate-kept version of things, and certain types of information just will never get included. It's not even about censorship to me. It's about unacknowledgement. So you got the acknowledged reality, the acknowledged news, and the alternative news. It's censored, but it's acknowledged. Alex Jones is censored, but he's acknowledged. It's the unacknowledged stuff that should really be considered censored. The stuff that never gets to breathe the air with all the mainstream propaganda.
Yeah, and Noam Chomsky had actually addressed this in his book Manufacturing Consent long ago. It's not like I agree with everything Noam Chomsky says, though he's contributed tremendously to context-free grammars, right? But he talked about this filtration process, and he was really a big proponent about what was happening in East Timor and how it was getting no news coverage. Not negative, just none, just media blackout, right? And that is worse than, like you said, being acknowledged, like a world stage character like Alex Jones. Those are a part of the simulated real news stories you just never hear about. That's why people often contest with the world stage perspective you and I have. They say, what do you think, that no crimes occur? That like no people are dying? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're saying the biggest events that get their own Wikipedia page, get their own films, get into the cultural zeitgeist, those are fake. Your friends, your family, things that happen in your immediate vicinity, that's real. That is what is undermined by this media culture we're entering.
Yeah, exactly. But, people will continually misrepresent it, and they'll say incredulously, you're saying everything's fake. And I'm like, well, that's a straw man, because that's the opposite of what I'm saying. But two, you're projecting, because the people who accuse you of calling everything fake literally think everything's real. And that's the same fallacy. The appeal to the authority, I mean, it's more or less the same kind of mentality that there's no filtration. They just trust the source, or they automatically distrust it. And I'm like, no, you actually have to parse the information. You have to examine it. There's nothing reflexive about this. But anyway.
The news cycle. Yeah, I was going to say the news cycle goes so fast that no one has time to critically analyze. They kind of just take it as is on the word of everyone else, our mass media, and they're like, well, obviously, it's something's there,
Well, would you agree that deconstructing media is far more entertaining than ever consuming it unknowingly, just passively accepting it as real? Like, do you not find this to be very entertaining?
Absolutely. It's almost like a gamification of this stuff. And I said before sort of adopted some of your methods, I used to think watching mainstream movies or the news was like water torture. I was like, I can't do it. It's all lies. Oh, but now it's like, no, wait. Rather than just low information unbelief and saying, oh, no, it's all lies, it's all fake. Well, if it's actually fake, you should be able to substantiate that claim. And it's actually quite easy to substantiate if you just look a little bit more. I will admit it's a little more exhausting than just totally cutting it off, which it warrants a break every now and then. But yes, it is very entertaining and it's quite fun even.
Yeah, to me, this is akin to its philosophy, its film criticism, but I find it to be very entertaining, very edifying, educational, and I think that's the danger in this because we're not running around crying wolf, terrified. We're not propaganda mules like conspiracy theorists, but we're actually a very calm, rational group of people discussing cosmography, cosmology, politics, and all these things with a slightly different context. And I think this is fun and entertaining, and that makes it dangerous because they could hemorrhage all kinds of red pill addicts and QAnoners and skyphobics, and they could possibly end up where we are. And I think it's a one-way trip. When you see the distinction between the manufactured world stage we're supposed to adhere to and the more expanded view that becomes aware of psyops and their influence, you don't go back in. It is really a one-way trip.
And all the activists working in Trutherville, if they could just redirect their efforts towards analyzing media fakery or these kinds of Metascript narratives, the whole thing would unravel. It is totally, it's a house of cards, fall apart. And the only benefit is that simply people are so easily baited or triggered by their political associations, which are indeed manufactured by lies anyway. And the last thing I was going to say about AI is you briefly mentioned a supernatural element about that. I'm just going to leave this on that before I leave. From a Christian perspective, as far as the record goes, there's no instance where non-living matter is possessed. Every instance recorded in the scriptures, a living creature was possessed, whether it be a person, the demoniac at Gadara, or when Christ cast the demon into the pigs and stuff. There's never a non-living thing. So no, I don't believe that AI can house demons, even though it's a very popular idea and concept. I totally reject that. However, it's totally possible for a demon-possessed person to use AI as a mask or as a front, like the Mechanical Turk, and be extremely informed when they are playing up a deified figure, a deified giant. And when I think of, I've been talking about this, Tim, for more than 7 years now, like the idea of deep fake necromancy. Because so much data is available on people today, it can be used to train multimodal models. And even though someone's totally dead and out, if someone could put on the user agent or pretend to be a person online with access to a model that has their voice, their likeness, the things they would say, all that stuff, you may as well be talking to that person, but it's deepfake necromancy.
So I could show up in the future without even knowing as some kind of like basically like a digital ghost. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, but and again, it's not you, but it's like all of your ghost in the shell activity, all of the activity you've done across all of your smart devices that are logging, indiscriminately logging all of your activity. That can be used as training data for various models that can then be used kind of like the automata in the Mechanical Turk, which is a very sophisticated, right, the Mechanical Turk, very sophisticated stuff. It was still controlled by a person.
Well, there's a movie series called Upload, and I watched a couple seasons, and it's about this company where when you die, you can have your consciousness uploaded into this simulation area where you can still interact with people through the internet. So it's like instead of going to the traditional heaven, a lot of people are opting into this digital consciousness, digitization of consciousness, which is then uploaded. And that's a reoccurring theme. I've seen it introduced again and again. I've seen this in many movies on Netflix. It's often a thing in a lot of these science fictions. The idea of your consciousness being put into a chip, being put into a new body, the transmigration of souls being facilitated through technology, immortality achieved in this way. A reoccurring theme. And I'm waiting for Elon Musk to start selling this, if he isn't already.
Well, and because it's in fiction, that means it's not real, right? And the Neuromancer, you brought up. I had read that book a couple of years ago, a recommendation by a friend. These entities were, quote unquote entities, could also interface with your own memories and stuff, because if you have indiscriminate logging of someone's activity, it does seem like magic, right? Arthur C. Clarke, like, what is it? Sufficient technology is indistinguishable from magic. That doesn't mean it is, but it seems like it. And that, I believe, is the new spiritualism we will see in the coming years. No one's going to be going to the Witch of Endor to speak to the prophet Samuel who passed away. People are going to pay a company to speak to, what they think. It's like the atheistic version of angels is aliens. The atheistic version of spiritualism, or speaking to the dead, or necromancy, will be speaking to an AI copy of someone.
Yes. I think that's a fair analogy. I think they're replacing all the traditional religious and spiritual concepts with a science fiction version, and it serves the same psychological need, and it is unoriginal, but I think that's exactly what we're looking at here. It's like atheists can embrace this type of stuff.
Yeah, of course, and it's a good sell for them. It fits into the world religion. Right. So, but don't buy into the idea. You cannot copy your consciousness, right? You can't. Your computer cannot become possessed. Okay. Now, a person using a computer can become possessed, but that's because I'm a Christian, and I know that bothers people. But anyway, that's whatever.
Well, hey, thanks for the call. Thanks for the info, and call back anytime.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.
And that is Leo Pirate. His website is mindwar.page. So let me go ahead and put that in the comments. Mindwar.page. Check it out. He's compiling a lot of material from a Metascript perspective. I got a comment from Observing Reality. He said, Witsit Vapes it told Owen Benjamin they did pass penguins on the way, but they were too far inland to see them. Okay. And he says here, well, then show us the penguins on the return trip. Yeah, we're still waiting. Children of a Lesser Shed Dog says, when will Luigi appear on Dancing with the Stars? Look, I think anybody who sends him fan mail, anybody who tattoos him, or even expresses, support for this guy, ought to be put on some kind of a blacklist. Like, if you support Luigi, and I know it's fake, but in principle, if you support somebody shooting a CEO in the back, I think you should be banned from Uber, Airbnb. I think you should be blacklisted so companies can decide not to do business with you. I mean, that's just me. That would be fair. Like, I think that there should be some kind of penalties for lying, deception, and cheering on murder. I don't know. Great call, says Clockwork113. Yep, exactly. Leo Pirate, very informative. Go to mindwar.page. So let's see what else. We're talking about the Order. A lot of interesting material there. I'm going to have to watch it. It's just coming out. And it's relevant to our interests, because this entire narrative of the nuke and Seattle, it all does tie to the domestic violent extremists, likely working with Russia. And by the way, we mentioned 6/11. That's the date that Jurassic Liars has pointed as the date that the nuke will be dropped. So something to look forward to. There's a lot of rumors that there's a lockdown coming. I'll be honest, I hope so. I want to get a lot of writing done, a lot of research, and I'm not the least bit bothered by psyops. In fact, I'm entertained by them. So should that happen, I'm cool with it. Doing some research on this, but if you haven't heard this, Elon Musk cannot enter some of the buildings of his own aerospace company, SpaceX. 400 SpaceX staff have higher security clearances than their billionaire boss. And this reminded me of how in Fly Me to the Moon, Nixon wasn't aware that they were faking the moon landing. So I'm wondering here, is Elon Musk totally in the dark? I thought he's some kind of evil villain, mind control master, but I'm wondering here, is he just a useful stooge? Yeah, apparently, by the way, the fog. Yes, Druth, we're supposed to fear. So the drones are gone, but now it's fog. Everybody's talking about fog. People are going to be reporting fog. Now, real fog's going to be conflated with fog. There's going to be AI fog. There's going to be movie clips from movies about fog shared around. So, yes, fog is the new drones. I should just put that in the title. Jessica Roberts says, lockdown, let's go. I'm essential. Yeah, I have press passes. I'm actually making some new ones, but we're going to issue new press passes. The IPS Insider is going to go into publication in 2025. And you will be unlockdownable. If you have a press pass, I don't care if it's Fallout, a virus, or Civil War, you can go out there and report on what's happening. And be assured that none of the stuff they're hyping will be real. In fact, that's not always true. There is a point where these riots do get a little rambunctious. We had a reporter who was hit with a baton. They broke his camera. The person who hit him got in a car, ran over some people. But yeah, fog is the new drone, so we can look forward to that. Again, I started off today talking about how Radio Online, they do their TSL Power 50, and Infinite Plane Society is number 33 of the top 50 for 2024. And this report samples listener sessions, and it finds the 50 most influential and most listened to live streaming talk shows. So we're on the list with people like Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Dan Bongino, Alex Jones, Bill Cunningham, and many others. I haven't heard of all of them, but I'm happy to be on the list. And I think we can do better. Honestly, I think I could do a lot better. I should be doing 2 live streams a day, one in the morning, one in the evening, as I had planned before. Children of a Lesser Dog said more stimulus checks to increase hyperinflation. Well, we're going to need it. We're going to have to pay for our radiation protection kits, our masks, our PPE, space junk helmets. They're going to mandate those. I can't wait for the helmet Karens. Can't wait. They're going to chastise you for not wearing a helmet. Like, your helmet protects me. Okay, well, we have plenty to talk about flat Earth footprints. And yes, this is a problem, as someone pointed out, that you shouldn't hear crunches in the snow if there's not any footprints, because the crunching sound comes from the snow crushing. So what you see here is a split screen. On top, somebody's actually walking through Antarctica, and on the bottom, they're faking it. Now, why are they faking it? I don't know. I'm agnostic about it. I don't consider myself to be a fence squatter. I think I'm being consistent, and I've been consistent this entire time. And you're, I think, justified in saying, I'm not going to come to a conclusion for another week, another 2 weeks. I need more information. There's too many people looking at this critically to just say you have enough information to know right now. The Fog, produced by John Carpenter, 1980, says Clockwork 113. Okay, that's worrisome. John Carpenter, Metascriptor. They Live is a documentary about how things actually are. I would also say that In the Mouth of Madness describes perfectly how monolithic media shapes worldview. And in that movie, it's told through the story of a horror author whose books become so popular that the world essentially becomes an expression of his books. It's pretty good, though. Joined by Conscious Reality, Rome 33. Yeah, another movie called The Mist. So right now, apparently, there's this, it's the new drone thing. I'm just going to do a quick search for headlines. The Fog. Dense fog, Chicago. Fog advisories. Fog disruptions, UK. Let's see here. Thick fog, travel chaos. But people are reporting strange fogs all over the place. To the point where I think a lot of these reports are just going to be similar to the drone reports. So just get ready for the fog hysteria. Fog is next. Spray more vinegar, says Peter W. Yep, vinegar is the enemy of chemtrails. That's what they say. I have actually seen this going back years. It turns out that, like, back in 2012, Ron Paul voters were known for spraying the sky with vinegar, thinking it was getting rid of chemtrails. And that's a simple one to solve. It's called faulty causality. You have to ask yourself, would they have gone away if I just stared at them? The answer is yes. They went away anyway. Overthought says, oh God, now I have to deal with my relatives asking me how the southern 24-hour sun works on a flat earth. Yeah, good luck. That's the thing. It was a false dilemma, an either-or fallacy, a false dichotomy. The debates were invalid because the central problem is special effects. We should be talking about special effects. And the Globe side doesn't acknowledge that their model is a science fiction construct, that it's made of pixels and CGI and art. Like, it's so much artifice. It's simulation. So there you have it. A purposeless, pointless trip to Antarctica, and they wasted their money. Well, I have a new book I'm working on, so you can look forward to that in a couple of days. I think I need to clarify as best I can what our big picture is here. And I put out a summary generated by Claude AI, a summary of Lie World. I asked for a 2,000-word summary. And I think this summary really does explain what the book is about. It's very methodical, and I'm explaining what I believe to be an accurate model of media, the way to examine it and to perceive it as an active media consumer as opposed to a passive. And it's not necessarily just reiterating a lot of the stuff that we already talked about, but I'm really, I think, fine-tuning a couple of points here. And mainly the relationship between fake news and fake news-driven narratives and the subsequent history and what that means for our shared world view and why it all matters. Okay, yes, Overthought, this is ridiculous. Happy to hear you again. Yeah, thanks for joining, and I'm glad you're here. How do you solve it? Here's one point. The presupposition that there's a shape has been built into this false dilemma. If you can't demonstrate curve, if you can't if you can't demonstrate it, you can't display it, show it, test it, if you can't show any curve, then where do you start off with the presupposition that the Earth is a shape? So I'm not just saying shape agnosticism. I'm saying that until we see the edge, we can't be definitive about the model. So is there an edge? Is it a ball? Well, you would have to be there to know. You'd have to be able to test it. But the bigger point here is if space is fake, if everything we've been shown from space is fabrication, then we can't really say we have a complete model. Because where the globe ends, space begins. If we don't know what space is, if space has been misrepresented, then we're missing a crucial component to arriving at a, quote, model. And I've always said it's premature to have a model. We need more information. And this trip to Antarctica was 8 years too late. And by all indications, it's a simulation. So there we go. As far as the suns go, the presupposition is that the lights in the sky tell us about the shape of the Earth below. And that's kind of a sticking point for a lot of people. They're saying, well, we're not making that assumption. It's not our starting point. But then how do you explain concurrent lighting here and darkness here? So there's some areas where the globe model sufficiently explains observations. But again, the globe model is kind of a misnomer because the explanation for space just isn't there. So we need more information. It's not a cop-out or not fence squatting. Okay, well, we'll see. Conscious Reality says, I can't think like I was indoctrinated to think. I don't understand how people actually believe in a globe. Yeah, and I don't think we can separate the conversation of cosmology from, quote, worldview, how we perceive it from the user perspective. And I have a number of points about this, which I'm addressing separately. A Newful says, why can't the Earth be the same shape as the moon and sun sphere? See, that's a very good question. But if you look at all the planets, the moon, the sun, all the exoplanets, everything they show us in space is a perfect sphere. The Earth, they say, is an oblate spheroid. So I would ask, why can't the sun and the moon be oblate spheroids? Why can't Saturn or Jupiter be an oblate spheroid? Why is Earth the only oblate spheroid? It's just an inconsistency. But again, it's beyond shape. I think the real question is about perception and how collectively mankind has been trained to treat the ubiquitous screen as a sensory apparatus. And everything we perceive through that is just processed as, quote, as real. It's real as anything else that we experience. And that augmented reality is the simulation. That's the mental model that we all share, that they augment, is the simulation. The physical world is real. The simulation theory is a completely separate topic, but we do have a simulation in our mind. We have a mental map. And I'm saying our mental map is not trustworthy if it's informed by the screen, or if rather the screen takes precedent over your own perceptions. There is a war on perception. Doesn't matter if you think for yourself, if your options, the things you can think about, are all contained within their fictional universe. You can think for yourself, but if your entire frame of reference is Wikipedia, where's that going to get you? You have to be able to perceive for yourself, which means, what I mean is adding more information to what's coming from the screen. Secondary information, other sources, your personal investigation. It's one of the reasons why I advocate for press passes and doing our own research. And by doing our own research and even our reportage, it's not simply bouncing off the mainstream narratives, giving our own take on it. It's actually questioning the media itself and the intention behind each of its fake stories. There's no self-corrective mechanism within media. They don't check their own stories. They don't verify their own claims. It's just a deluge. Roxy W says, "Are we in a simulation?" When I say simulation, I mean our mental model that we all live within is a simulation. It's the best we can do. It's informed by our experience, by our education, and it's meant to help us, survive, and also, I think, make predictions, accurate predictions. But the mental model that we're sharing, the one that is enhanced by what we get through the TV, contains a lot of things that just aren't real, such as space junk. So when they tell you to put on the space junk helmets, just remember, you're having to put on this ridiculous thing because the general public is so gullible, they will believe anything. All right, this is Auto Hoax, or GTFO. Thanks for joining. We'll be starting earlier tomorrow, and sign up for the newsletter if you haven't at ips.monster. Thanks for all the comments, and thanks again, Leo Pirate, for the call, and we will catch up soon.